That became Bremer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have the big eagle.
Yeah.
I've had an account there since 1983, right?
Well, that's
I have less digits than everybody else has.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine before. Because you're pretty young yet. Are you 40-ish?
I'm 50-ish.
50-ish, okay. Oh my gosh, you guys are young. How old are you, Jim?
60.
I'm 67 and a half.
Oh.
How old are you?
Well, you guys just guess.
I would say, I think I'm going to have to say, always gets 10 years lower than you think. I would say you're probably 72.
No, I'm in my 80s.
Yeah, well, see, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
I guess 10 years younger. I would have said 82.
If you would have gone, yeah, well, yeah, I would. I am almost 83.
Yeah, see, I knew that.
You knew that,
No,
huh?
I just was lucky. You see, you have to say, you always guess women's age 10 years younger than what you think. You know, it's kind of like, so I said 72, but I went, I think you're probably whatever. And then I just said 82, and you're almost 83.
Right.
Silly, isn't that silly?
Well, I don't know. I don't think about it as any other than a number,
No, it isn't.
you know. And I've been blessed by God. I get around and I do well.
Yes, you sure do. And I love your laugh.
Oh.
Right away, even before I saw you, I heard
Yeah.
the laugh outside.
Oh, yeah.
You got a great laugh.
Well, thank you. I must have inherited that from my genes. Yeah. All right. You don't see any of this either.
Not right away. We'll get that all at the end.
Yeah.
This is the analytical stuff.
Yeah.
We're looking for the heart and soul here. That's
Yeah.
okay. So,
When did Marv have his first involvement with the chamber?
When he was asked to join, I guess. He was asked to join, and I think that's because of his standing in the community, his experience and ability in the civic affairs, and then, of course, his banking knowledge. So they asked him, and then you know, Marvin was so different from a lot of people. He loved to help people. That was his thing. Help people, make things better for everybody, etc. However, he actually had this genuine feeling about people. He loved people. Crazy, but he loved people. He actually thought people should be, shall we say, given a lot of praise and a lot of help in doing what they could do, and then get them to just enjoy living in the city and the surrounding areas because of what they were doing. You know, so he really. Let me give you an example of that. When he was working at the bank, at the time was called the First American National Bank. When he was working there, he had a what term would I use? A very eye-opening thing happened to him. The bank at that time had an area that you could come in off the street, have a cup of coffee, sit down in a chair, have a cup of coffee, and get a little warm, and then go outside again. Okay, so a person came in, and Marvin was in the lobby and said, you know, there are people out there, I don't think they really belong in the bank. And there's even a lady out there that is definitely not dressed well. And I don't think they belong here. And Marvin, I said, when he talked to me about it, I said, well, what did you say to that person? He said, you know, I told him there's no sign out there that says who should come in or who shouldn't, and therefore all are welcome. But I will go out and check and see what's going on that end of the lobby. So I said, well, what did you find? And he says, well, I found a man and a woman, just like she said, that was poorly dressed. And I said, well, then what did you do? And he says, I just went and got a cup of coffee, and she was sitting down, and handed it to her and put it on the table so she could put it on the table, and told her to enjoy her coffee, and when she warmed up, she was free to come and go whenever she wished. Oh, I said, well, how did she take that? And he says, well, she got up and she said, thank you. This is the nicest thing anybody has done to me in the last few months. And she said, would you mind if I asked you a question? And he says, no, go ahead. She said, would you mind giving me a hug? And he said, no problem at all. I will give you a hug. So he gave her a hug, and then he went back to work in his office. So I thought, you know, that really was something that stayed with him all his life. So the next evening when we had our meal, I decided to make him a cup of coffee. We never drank coffee in the evening meal, but I thought this was as good a time to have a cup of coffee. So I put it down by his plate, and he looked at it, and he looked at it again, and I said, well, Marvin, you can drink it. It's good coffee, you know. He says, yeah. He says, but how about my hug? So I gave him a hug. But this did really set in his mind, I think, for all the rest of his years. So that was interesting, but because of that, I think he decided that he was going to join the Chamber of Commerce. He really felt there was a need, and he thought the chamber was big enough so that he could work through them in all these divisions and accomplish what he wanted as far as helping people, be it in his church, in his family, or in the community. So in 1985, then, he joined the Metro, or Municipal Metro Affairs Division. Now, there I have a piece of paper with what he did when he was on it. Basically, it was to assist area government in finding mutually acceptable and workable solutions to complex problems that confront this fast-growing area. And there were 4 things that he did that I have a newspaper clipping because they called him and asked him what he wanted to do, what his aim was in this division. And he said he would write something up. He sent it to them. And then, of course, he had it. And he said, Corine, if you are ever asked a question of what I'm doing, you can just pull that piece of paper out. Well, that piece of paper I found, but it's very yellow, as you can imagine. However, it's legible, and you can read it, you know. So if you wish to do that, that is fine. After that, then, of course, he went on from there to being chairperson of the chamber. Now, at that time, Mr. Moore was, Tom Moore, president of the Chamber of Commerce. And Tom and Marvin really, really got along. That was a combination second to none. And so when he joined the chamber, that would have been 88 and 89, he developed a finance planning for the chamber. And the chamber at that time also had to move get another place, relocate. So Marvin was instrumental in getting another building for them. And not only that, but Tom said he also then managed to take care of the lease. So Tom was very happy about that because he didn't want to bother with that kind of stuff. It just, you know, when Marvin with his expertise from working at the bank, he thought it was much better anyway. So he just left Marvin do it and was very happy about it. And then when Marvin was on the board, he also started something new which was called strategic planning. Now Marvin was a person who liked to have goals, and then he liked to have the results. Just to have the goals in his book was not a very good idea. You had to have results to know what you were doing. So there were, in all these divisions, and I think there were around 11 or 12 at that time, he had people, like the chairs and the vice chairs, he had those people informed as to what the goals would be and how you would handle them, etc. And he discussed this with them. At the end of the year, you had to tell what the short goals were and what the long goals were and how they were met. Now, if they were not met, then you had to make corrections. But the goals were very important. This was something you followed so that you knew what you were doing and what you were supposed to do. You know, it's like you have a goal in life. And he was very good at that. So he did that, and I think it all worked out pretty well. You know, one of the things that they had to do, and I remember this so well, was I don't know if you remember Highway 15 when it started in that era, and then of course we had the Bridge of Hope. Well, yeah, that was very important to me because Marvin and I had bought property on the lake, and it was 13 miles from our back door, so we could get out there very quickly. And weekends were the time we had family things. He was so busy with his volunteer committees and organizations that he belonged to. I also worked. So we had to really put aside family time. So the family time was from Friday till Sunday night at the lake, where we did our water skiing. We were all water skiers. In fact, my son was a slalom skier. That means you ski on one ski. So was I. He's still skiing. He's 59 years old. And of course, I gave up skiing in my 60s. I thought that was time to quit that little sport before I probably fell down and really hurt myself. But anyway, we enjoyed the lake. It was our home, away from home. We could have our company there. But we had one other thing that I think would amaze most people nowadays. And that was, well, I should say we didn't have one thing. We did not have a telephone. There was no land phone, no cell phone. There just was no phone. And that was just pure wonderful. We never had to worry about somebody calling and say, you gotta do this, that, or what. We had freedom and fun at the lake. So now, of course, you know, everybody walks around with a phone attached to them like they got another ear or something. And so we didn't have the phone. We did have one little problem though, and that was getting there. We always went down well, I guess I would say it was called the, I'm trying to think right now what the name was of the business, the Sartell Paper Mill, that's what it was, Sartell Paper Mill. We went through Sartell and by the paper mill and out towards the lake. That was a 2-lane road at that time, and it was not tarred. And it was more, I felt like a cow path than a road, but it was dusty, dirty, and when it rained, it was muddy, you know. So that was our way of getting out there, and that wasn't exactly a fun thing to get out there that way. So I said to Marvin at the time, I said, make an effort to look at that situation with Highway 15 and a bridge, because the sooner we get something out there that's fun to drive on, I'll be happier. And of course, you see now we have a beautiful Highway 15. We have a beautiful Bridge of Hope. So
that's interesting. So it was a personal situation, something that you noticed, and he was in a position where he could
look
try
at
to
it.
Facilitate change for everyone.
Yeah, and I don't know if you drive on that bridge much or drive. Oh, but my gosh, that's like the Cadillac after that path we had down, you know, that we would take past the Sartell Paper Mill. And of course, the Sartell Paper Mill isn't there anymore either, so there you go.
But the bridge is there.
The bridge is there, and boy, I love that bridge.
Now, it seems to me that being on the chamber then, that allowed Marv a chance to affect change, to have a vision for what the community could be. Why do you think the chamber was so important to him?
Because it gave him a chance to do what he wanted to, and that was service to community, church, and family. There was a better, larger area that he could work through and accomplish more. And that was his goal in life, was always to better things, whatever they were. And that gave him a better base to work on because it was so much larger. And I think he probably accomplished what he did, you know, in many ways. Anyway, according to Tom Moore, he went to all the meetings and luncheon affairs, business seminars, you name it. Marvin was usually at them. And so he really kept himself involved with the chamber. He just thought the chamber was a great way to accomplish what he wanted to in life.
And he didn't see it as, more responsibilities, more meetings to be to. I think the way you're saying it, he saw it as an opportunity, and it was even fun for him.
Right. And he just, how do I say it? There again, people. He was involved with people. He could get their ideas and how they felt about things and work towards that. To him, that wasn't a job. It was a volunteer thing that he enjoyed doing.
What do you think his greatest contribution might have been through the chamber?
His greatest, well, I like that Highway 15. I'll have to tell you that for sure. But along with that, I think it was his presence. Because he had that cool, calm, collected way of doing things that he made people feel like they were important. And if they needed help, he was there right away to help them, show them how to do things, give him encouragement, give them praise. And I think it was his presence. He genuinely, like I say, liked people, and I think they knew that and felt that. You know, I had many, many people come up and say, oh my, to deal with Marvin was like dealing with heaven. He was just so kind to everybody. But see, that was the thing with Marvin. He really believed everybody, no matter who they were, should have been treated with respect and kindness. And he did. And I think the people felt that it was coming from his heart.
Isn't this beautiful? Marv sounds like he was a humble person, but if he were to say what his greatest achievement was, what do you think that he would say that it was?
Making St. Cloud and the areas around St. Cloud better places to live in, to shop in, to play in, to do business in. He saw an improvement in those areas, and I think he felt that was his greatest achievement. Although he was one that never wanted to have any praise. That humility about him was just outstanding. It was always somebody else that did it. After, of course, he helped him, but you never heard that from him, you know. And I think really that was his greatest achievement, was just the fact that he could do what he could, again, through the chamber. I think the chamber was a blessing for him, because he was able to do what he wanted through the chamber, because there were many more people involved.
Mm-hmm. How about you? What's your favorite memory of that time when he was heavily involved with the chamber? What's your favorite memory?
His happiness, because of what he could do and accomplish. He always came home happy when he helped a person, or he got something done, or things were better because of it. He was always happy then. And Marvin really had a smile on his face most of the time. You know, he really did. And he was just, it's hard to explain. He was just so kind and willing and involved. In fact, one of my friends said, she called up and said somebody had asked her if Marvin would be on this committee or whatever it was, you know. And she says, what night would you do that on? I think he's gone every night as is. I don't think he can put any more in for all the things he belongs to. And he was on many things, the board of the hospital and Kiwanis. I could go on and on and on. But he enjoyed working for people. I remember Sister Dolores Super. She was on the hospital, and she just had started on the board, and Marvin was on the board. And she was really very scared because she had never been on this board. She knew nothing about it, and she was supposed to then take over. And so Marvin said, do not worry, sister, he said. If you have any problems, you just raise your hand a little, and I'll call on you, and then you can get any help that I have. And so she said, oh, Corine, that finger of mine worked constantly when I was starting. And certainly he was there every time like when should I call a quit to a discussion, end it, you know, and then we take a vote or something. She said, I just put my little finger up, and I looked at him, and he did his sign, and I quit then at that point. The discussion was over, and we had a vote. She said he was just the most wonderful person to help anybody that you could come across. And yet, you see, nobody ever knew about it. You know, and so now at this point I can tell, but she's still alive and a wonderful person. No longer, she's older too now, in her 80s, but that is a fine example, you know. And even personal problems, people would come to him with personal problems and get help. It was just in his nature to help people.
Jim, I think we have most of what we're assigned to get. Do you have anything that comes to your mind? I'd like to ask her to just relay one more thing that she might have come in with. Can you
Yeah, I think that's it. I think she's ready to go with it.
Yeah.
You did so much preparation. Is there anything that we haven't been able to cover that
Yes,
you'd like to talk about?
yes, there is. The fun parts. You know, everything isn't work. Some of it's fun too. And every year the chamber had their yearly banquet. And that, of course, I could go to because I wasn't working. So I would go along with Mara and thoroughly enjoy it. In fact, I've got a picture here for you of the time we were at that chamber, that particular banquet. And someone, I don't remember who, but said, we're going to have Marvin get up and sing a song, and it was called Coming Up Banking. And I thought, how is this going to go? I've never heard Marvin sing. But anyway, he got up and he sang Coming Up Banking. Well, it was just funnier than, you know, I think they made up the words beforehand, you know, to some other melody. But anyway, everybody got up, gave him a standing ovation. And as they say, I just laughed because I didn't know he sang. But you know, the amazing thing is he actually had a good voice. Yeah. And so he was into fun too. It wasn't all, you know what I mean? Although for him, his work was so enjoyable with people that he, you know, I think he just was happy in general. But that was a fun thing. Also, when he was with Tom, we went to Washington, D.C., Tom and Marvin and I. And so that was our first trip for Marvin and me in Washington, D.C., so we got to see all the monuments and everything. Would you believe in those days, you could even get in the White House with a tour? Yeah, we had a full tour. We found out where the president would sit when he gave his messages to the people, and etc. So we got a full tour of the White House. Now I don't think you can even get in it. And they also had, which was rather interesting, I almost got in a little bit of trouble. Marvin and Tom were behind me walking, and I went up the steps because I saw this thing that said Russian Embassy. And I thought, well, that's okay. I'm going to go see what that building's like. After all, they're in our country. I should be able to go in and see it, right? No, not at all. I went up and rang the doorbell, and here come two guys with guns. And what in heaven's name am I into now? So before anybody could grab me, Marvin and Tom came and said, Corine, get back down those steps right now. So I just said, they're not very friendly. They live in our country and they won't even say hi or anything. They stand there with guns. Well, they didn't get me. So I guess I was safe for another trip. But anyway, it was a fun trip. And I don't have any pictures of it though. But it was a fun trip. And so I guess that's probably the one thing. Like I say, we did have fun too, and I wanted them to know I want everybody to know it wasn't all work, you know, for our volunteers, you know, for the volunteers. So, and then Tom as president, when Marvin left, they gave him a really nice plaque with remembrance, and I still have that. And I'm sure that I will give that to our son Stephen eventually.
Should we have her wish the chamber a happy birthday or anything? How about that? You know, it's the chamber's 150th birthday next year. The St. Cloud Chamber's 150th birthday. That's why we're doing this right now.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. 150 years old.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, then they must be doing a good job, is all I can think of, to go and still be doing as much good as they are. I think that's marvelous, you know. My goodness, that's older, a lot older than I am even. So
why don't you say, hi, this is Corine Faber, and I'd like to wish the Chamber of Commerce, St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce, a happy 150th birthday.
St. Cloud Area Chamber.
St. Cloud Area Chamber.
Of Commerce.
Okay.
A happy 150 years
yeah.
and whatever.
Okay. I'm Corine Faber, and I'd like to wish the Chamber a happy 150 years of good work in the St. Cloud community and all the surrounding area. Happy birthday, Chamber.
She's so good. And you were worried. I mean, you gave us exactly what we were after. Exactly what we were after.
Well, I'm glad.
And you made us laugh and
It was
a little
authentic.
bit,
It was authentic. It was from the heart.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
You're great at this.
You're great. Where I'm honored when I
Thank you.
I get a couple of times I break tears and I go, yeah, that's what I want. That's at 20%. That's like a gem.
Yeah, but for her it was 80%.
Right.
Flip the
It was
equation.
flip. Yeah. That's right.
Well, so then you don't want me to say anything about...
No. What I think we should do is, since we have a little time, let me just turn this off.
Yeah?
And turn this off.
I mean, I should have a scissor, but that's okay. We'll get it.
I'm wondering if we know some of the same people. I'm going back into my mind at
Name them.
Bremer, like Jan, who worked at the information
Oh,
desk.
of course, dear friend.
Yes. Do you still
In
see her
fact,
around?
she was one who had, her husband, was quite ill on many times.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Denny.
Denny was quite ill on many occasions, and she went into Marvin's office one day, and this is what she told me. So, and she didn't know which way to turn with his illness and etc. And Marvin just went all the way out to help her. She has never forgotten that. And she said on the day his death, she found out he died, she sat down and cried. But she said not only I, the whole bank was crying, because they knew they had something they were really going to miss. Many people have come up to me and said how he has helped them in their personal problems, not only, but that's a part of Marvin. Anything he could do for anybody. He didn't care if it was a personal problem or otherwise, he really didn't care. It was just his way of helping people, I have these things. I don't know if you're interested in them or not, but it is the Municipal Metro's Affair Division. And when he got to working with them, the St. Cloud Daily Times called and asked if he would give them something to put in the paper that would tell what the Municipal Metro Affairs Division actually did. And so this is a concise shall we say, answer to what they wanted. And when I asked Marvin, too, what he did, he said, this is I wrote this up for the Times. Take it with you, Corine. If anybody ever asks, you can give them this and they'll know exactly what I did. So this is that write-up, yellow as it is, because you can imagine it's from 1985, so of course it's yellow. Then there's another one I had, and that was when he was a chamber chairperson. And what did he do then? So the same thing, they wanted him to write something up, so he did. So he did a synopsis of what he did as the chamber chairperson. And this is this one. And this is very good. I really like this because in here he told about the strategic planning that he was going to start. And that was so important for the chamber. Also, they have the purpose and again, these 12 working divisions that they had. So this is another good write-up and coming directly from Marvin. So it is concise. It is a great synopsis of everything he did, much better than I could even explain. So I have these two pieces of paper. If anybody wants to take a copy of them, they're welcome to. They are, like I say, very yellow. I mean, they're from way back in the 80s, but they tell the story. And that's what we want with the chamber and why he thought the chamber was so great.
I wonder if the chamber has these articles in their archives. Do you happen to know?
I have no idea, sorry. But as I say, if anybody wants to take a copy of, there's certainly...
We may have the staff do that.
Welcome to it, because it certainly is a good description, a good synopsis of what he had, and far better than I could do. So they're most welcome to them. I want to keep the originals, but they're welcome to take a copy. Sure. All right?
Okay. Well, let's have them do that. And they can't do it far better than you do. You get the essence, and you get the heart and soul. That gets the detail.
Well,
that's the two of them together.
Thank you, but together it shows how good and how great the chamber was for him.
Yeah. I can see why you were attracted to him, and I can see why he was attracted to you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, it was. Actually, it wasn't immediate, though, I'll tell you. No, we both were, how do I say it, doing our things. I was finishing nurse's training, and he was getting started in the world of working because he had gotten out of the Navy, as I said. So it was a while. I was out of training a whole year before we got married. But it was a wonderful marriage. He really was a great guy to be married to.
And how long were you married?
32 years. And then the good Lord said his work was done. It was time to go home to heaven. August 6, 1990.
Not so long after his very involved time with the chamber.
Right. Yeah, within a year, because he was done with the chamber in 1989. Okay. And it was quite a shock to the whole community. He died of a massive coronary, which was really rather interesting considering the fact that he was tall and lean, But when the good Lord calls you, you go. It's as simple as that. And he always told me, he said, Corine, when my time comes, don't attach machines or anything else. just let me go home. And that's what I did. And hard decision, but I knew what he wanted.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're here for the chamber birthday and everything, but your personal story is really beautiful. It's nice to hear a story like that.
Thank you.
I just have a couple questions. Who are some of the other people within the chamber, like Don Bitson?
Yes.
He's coming in next.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don Bitson or Don Helgeson or
Yes.
any other people that were at that time of his serving that was really important.
Yeah, they all were. They were all important.
Anybody else that you can think of?
Oh, not offhand. I have that information in the car, I think, but I...
Don't worry about it. Well, that's not that important. I just thought I'd go a little further.
But Marvin and Tom Moore really were a good combination.
Yeah, from what you were saying before, it almost seemed like they were...
on the same plane all the time,
off.
on the same plane. Yes, they were. And so it was a good working relationship. And I think, I know Marvin enjoyed it, and I'm sure Tom did too. So it was...
How did they play off one another? How were they alike and different?
Well, they were alike in that whatever one suggested, the other said, well, let's try it. And they would, you know, whatever their ideas was. Like, again, with the fact that they had to relocate, you know, and Tom says, we got to relocate, Marvin. I don't know where to start. And Marvin said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. You see, this type
Where
of
did they
thing.
move from? What was it? The teepee over to the new place, or the place up on?
I don't even remember. It was downtown. I can't even remember where it was. Good question.
Then
I know
moved
they,
into the
well,
Herberger's
yeah.
place.
Pardon
Then
me?
they moved into the next to the Herberger's, and then
That-
they went to where I used to work at Team Electronics.
Okay.
Which was their last move before they moved.
They came here.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 years ago they came here, you know. So, as they say, they just sort of, they work together. One would suggest something, the other would say, fine, let's try it, or let's look into it. Then, you know, and they were just a working team in every sense of the word. And I know when it came time to go to Washington, D.C., that was rather cute, because I said to Marvin, well, you know, I've never been there. And so he went back to Tom and said, you know, Corine's never been there. Can we take her along? And Tom says, yes, my wife can't go because she's working. But we'll take Corine along. He said, the two of us should be able to keep her in place.
Can I tell you what has come because of that? Those first tours to Washington, D.C. Every year there's about 20 to 25 people that go to Washington every year. And Al and I have been interviewing for the last 2 or 3 years down at the evening at the Capitol, all the movers and shakers. We interview. What do you think? How do you feel? And some of the people that have said some of the most beautiful things is really important. So that's one of the things that started the mindset of being able to work with the government. And you probably went there not just for a tour, but to maybe
no. Yeah,
meet
we
representatives. Who did you meet?
We went to the Congress. They had a meeting, all right, and we sat in that. And I don't know what I was expecting, you know, but I didn't get actually what I was expecting. I expected them all to be busy, to be working and to have votes and all this. And they came and they went, and this sort of blew my mind. How can they come and go and vote and not even listen to what's going on, you know? But I guess that's the way they work. And did you get the same feeling?
Yeah, it's like watching a ice dryer, the Orion go around. It's like, what's going on here? You just sit there and you go, okay. So
Yeah.
what they do is they only show on TV the 2% that's the meat and butter. They don't show all that, 10 hours of them kind of.
Yeah.
But the architecture had to be just amazing with the woodworks and all of the icons as you travel through the Washington Congress and the White House.
Yeah, it was interesting, as they say. But there too, it was back in the 80s, and so I've forgotten some of it, other than my initial response was, my goodness, this is not what I expected, And I have to be honest with you, although I knew what was going on, I didn't divulge it deeply because I had my job too. And you can only do so much. And Marvin would come home and tell me this, that, or whatever. And as they say, that helped me somewhat keep involved, but I wasn't involved like somebody who had nothing else to do.
Sure.
You know.
What was your profession?
Nursing. I was a registered nurse.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, I had my line of work. But, you know, we never had a problem with our line of work. Marvin never brought anything home from the bank with names of people. Even our best friends that went in the bank, and they'd come up to me and say, you know, Corine, I was in the bank yesterday. Did Marvin say something? No, never. That was, how do I say, banking business, and it stayed in the bank.
Little slips, sink ships. You know, it's just that, you know, and there was a competitive, like the Zap bank. And,
yes.
And then you got Security Financial with Murphy's, you know, Tim Murphy, and my dad told me about getting financed through Security Federal back in 1952, and that was Tim Murphy, and there was other people there too. So a lot of the people throughout the community, I have that kind of next generation movement, being 67, just a little different point of view. But we've been able, Al and I, grow through it with goodness, and the chamber has really been really important to me. It's a way for me to give back.
Oh, wonderful. Then you guys are carrying on what Marvin started.
Exactly.
See? What goes around comes around, fellas.
Actually, the more you give,
the more you get.
Live. No,
Jim's
listen,
around.
The more you give, the more you live. Not get. Get is the more you... See, that's actually wrong language. The more you give, the more you get. That's kind of like, if I do this, I'm expecting something.
No, I meant in reward you.
Right. In a reward.
Yeah.
But I think the reward is being able to give. For me, that's my...
Well, that was Marvin. So you were a lot like Marvin.
Yeah.
The more he could give, the happier he was. Amen. I mean, really, he just... he'd stop on the streets and ask somebody, you know, if they needed help with this, that, or that. I said, Marvin, you don't even know them. He says, well, they look like they might need a little help getting here or there, you know. And but he was like you, both of you. The more you could give, the happier he was.
I loved your story to set the stage of who he was and how he treated people, of the people that came into the bank to get warm and have the cup of coffee and the hug.
And it didn't make any difference who you were. I mean, there's no sign up there that says who has to come in and who shouldn't, you know. If it's coffee is there, it's for anybody. All are welcome. And, you know, I still go into the bank, and there are people in the bank that will come up to me and say, you know, they will come up to me and say, this is Marvin's anniversary of death.
Wow.
Now, that was just August 6th again. And I went in the bank.
That's now, gosh, you know,
28 years. Let's see, 28 years.
Ago,
yeah. And I went into the bank then in August, you know, this month. And it was, I think, the day after. But anyway, one of the gals came up and said, you know, Corine, this was the day, August 6th. I can't imagine they still remember that, you know.
Was it Risa? She's the one that's still there that I knew from that time.
Do you know Risa Hopkins?
Well, I don't know her last name, but it has to be. There's only so many Risas with blonde hair.
Yeah, it's Risa then.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you, Corine? I remember exactly where I stood and exactly where I heard that.
It was a good crew there at that time.
Oh, gosh,
the whole thing. And that's why I lived in Colorado for almost 15 years. I still maintained my Bremer account.
Isn't that cute?
You know,
well,
some automatic payments.
They still pretty much carry that feeling of all are welcome and we're happy you're here. And Risa's a doll.
Yeah, she is. And just the whole crew. Hildy.
And Pam is another one.
Okay, yes.
And Jan, when Jan just retired this last year, I think, she was at the desk and answered the phone.
Yes. But when you see her, tell her that Al, you know, describe me. He's the guy with long hair that works in radio. And Denny, and then her son, you know, took care of my cowboy boots.
Oh,
I had a situation where I was program director of our classic country radio station, WVAL.
WVAL?
Yeah.
Okay. The wife, Val. Yes. She was a classmate of mine in nurses training.
She was in nursing, yeah.
Yeah, and we both, at the VA hospital, we both worked at the VA hospital for years, and
She knows Val Hoppy.
she
Oh,
was a,
yeah.
yeah,
Jim
she
and
was
I
a classmate. Huh?
Jim and I documented, we did
A
the story of
classmate.
Tri-County
He's a
Broadcasting.
classmate with Val.
Val, yeah.
From
Yeah.
Cathedral?
Yeah. Well, no, from nurses training.
Oh, okay.
Nurses training. Yeah, nurses training. And she had a sister, Ursi, too, that was in nurses training. Yeah, I haven't seen her for a couple years. She's having some dementia
Yeah,
problems.
she has some memory issues, but
Yeah.
I saw Val maybe 3-4 days ago. It was late last week.
How
And
was
she? She looked real good. Yeah.
Did she know you?
She knew who I was. I'm not sure she could have gotten my name, but she knew who I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we have invited her to a couple of get-togethers every year. We, in September, all of us that are close, you know, within a 100-mile radius, we get together. But she hasn't made it, and we think that she just plain forgets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like anyone in that situation. She has very good days where you can hold a nice conversation, and then she has some days
Yeah,
where she just
yeah,
can't.
right. Can't
put
reach
enough
it.
pieces together.
Yeah. Well, and dementia really
She's
is.
comfortable, you know.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And they treat her well. She's getting good food. She looks really quite good.
She's in a nursing facility.
Yes, in Cherrywood.
Yeah. So,
And then Herb
Herbie
passed away
died.
last
Yeah,
year.
he died. But I'm going to tell you something. You know who the power behind Herbie was? Val. She was the one who kept things going.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And without her, Herb wouldn't have done, he wouldn't have done near as well without Val.
I agree.
Oh, you
Well,
agree?
yeah.
Yeah.